watchers, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel, broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have a piece from Matthew and Son Watches, which comes in this cute little box, and I'll get into this in a little bit more detail later. So MAS Watches is an Australian-based company. They launched last year and they had successfully produced two different models, I believe. What I have here is one of those models, of course. They launch with a specific goal of producing unique design pieces with quality and attainable prices, and we'll talk about whether they have truly achieved their goal or not. So without further ado, guys, let's flip the camera around and take a closer look at this watch. Alright guys, so here we have the box on the table here. Does it spin well? Yes, it does very nicely actually. So cardboard box on the outside, and I'm pleased to inform that it comes in a very practical watch roll, which I really appreciate. That's a bit of artwork from his son Tate, Matthew's son Tate, which that's the Irukandji, which is in reference to this specific watch here. So that's how it looks like. Let's just fold it up. Right, so there we go, nice little watch roll here, and what they have provided is also the backup strap. Now this watch, you can buy it with the this NATO strap option, but I've chosen of course the bracelet, which is how I like my watches. A little bit of a card here, and showing that you can actually get it in the 10 or 4 o'clock crown position, which is fantastic. Okay, let's just put that aside now and talk about the watch in a little bit more detail. Just undo that bracelet. So guys, here we have the MAS watches, or MAS watches, Irukandji in reef blue, and this is really quite an electric blue here. This is the automatic dive watch which they have produced on startup last year. Just to let you know, when you get it, you have a choice of getting it in this NATO or a NATO two-piece option. That one comes in Australian dollars 425, which converting to USD right now is just under 300 USD. If you choose to get it with the bracelet, as I have, it is 490 Australian dollars, which is somewhat over 300 USD. All right, so that's the going price of this particular piece. The watch itself is inspired by the Irukandji venomous jellyfish, which is found in the northern waters of Australia, between Indonesia and Australia, I guess mostly, in my understanding and reading. And the watch itself, the design and various elements are inspired by the jellyfish. They tell me that the dome crystal and the round case kind of reflects the body, and then these lugs are inspired by the tentacles of the jellyfish, right? That's kind of the inspiration for the watch. Let's talk about the movement in here now. So what we have here is none other than the Seiko NH35A, which you have seen umpteen times before on this channel. If you follow my videos, stats down the left-hand side of the screen here. In this case, the date window is implemented on the 3 o'clock position there. You can see it's black writing on a white disc. Rated accuracy, as stated on the left, in this particular iteration, it's actually not bad. It's running slightly slow at -6 seconds per day, which is something I would live with, and I probably wouldn't feel the inclination to open it and regulate it if I was keeping this watch, which I probably will actually. I really have quite enjoyed this piece. Okay, talking about the case now. The case here is 42 millimeters at the widest portion, and you can see it's kind of got a unusual design, a really quite unique, nice design. So the widest portion, right there, where my thumb is rubbing against, is 42 millimeters. But if you measure it where the bezel is attached to the case, it's 39.5. So it kind of tapers nicely, which means that it doesn't wear very large at all. Thickness is about 13 millimeters to the top of the bezel, but if you take the glass into account, it's actually closer to 15 millimeters thickness here. The lug width is 20 millimeters, and pleasingly these are drilled lugs, which gives a nice option to quickly change the straps with a simple tool or even a paper clip if you so choose. Lug to lug distance is actually not too big at all. You can see how the lugs turn down very quickly from the case, so it's not much more than the case at 46 millimeters between my thumbs there. Overall weight of the watch with a couple of links removed is 153 grams, which is kind of at the sweet spot of being substantial but not being too light, so that, you know, it feels a bit floaty. This is a nice weight in my preference, in my opinion. I do like watches around this weight. Okay, finishing wise, the bezel, right, is matte finish with that kind of coin edge, if you want to call it that. The case itself is horizontal brushed on the sides, you know, and that includes the sides of the lugs there. But the top of the lugs are actually, you know, transitioned to a longitudinal brushing, if you will. Because this is horizontal on the side, it transitions nicely into effectively what is a radial pattern. Hopefully you can see that light reflecting off the brushing there at the bottom of the case there, right? That's really how it looks like in terms of the finishing. The case back itself, you can see, is polished. And it's got a very nice stamped artwork there of the Irukandji jellyfish, right? That's really quite a pretty stamped back there, I gotta say. So screw down solid case back with a screw down crown, which is signed. And sorry, I haven't actually scraped off that blue, and I don't mind leaving on there that blue sticker protecting the signage on the crown here, because it kind of plays in nicely with the blue of the watch. So I don't mind leaving that on until it wears off. It's quite difficult to scrape some of this off, as you might know. So screw down signed crown, in this case in the 10 o'clock position, gives you 200 meters for the water resistant rating of this watch. As I mentioned at the start, you can choose to implement it at the 4 o'clock position, which is a much more, I guess, conventional positioning. I chose the 10 o'clock because firstly, it's just different and cool. And also, you guys will know, if you follow me, I wear my watch on my right hand because I'm left-handed. And for once, I'm pleased to have a left-hand orientated crown position, which, you know, I love it. I really like that they've given that different option here. Okay, talking about the dial now. The dial now is a pretty sunburst blue, you know, really quite a nice bursting blue there. And it's got printed details that you can see there, MAS with the symbol at the top, and then the water resistant rating with the Irukandji name at the 6 o'clock position. It's got printed details in terms of the indices, but it does have an applied frame for the date window at the 3 o'clock position. The chapter ring is printed on the flange, of course, as you can see on these macro shots I'll give you guys. Hands wise, it's got polished syringe style hands, I guess you might call that. It's got a simple stick for the seconds with a lollipop counterbalance, and the counterbalance is covered in a black PVD type of treatment. The lume is fairly good on all the usual spots, including the full lume bezel. It lasts pretty much through the night. It gets pretty dim by the early hours of the morning, but it kind of does make it through the night. And of course, a lume shot right here for you guys to appreciate how it looks like in the dark. Okay, surrounding the dial is a 90-click unidirectional dive style bezel with a full lume ceramic insert. Okay, that's really what they've given here, and let me just turn it for you guys to hear. 5 clicks. Not very loud at all. So that's 15 clicks there, so it's 90 click in terms of the bezel count here. So not I guess some people really don't like 90 because they prefer bezel clicks that allow you to hit all the minute markers, but you know, really that's what it is. They've gone for a 90 click unidirectional bezel here. On top of the dial is a very nicely domed, you know, I think it's probably single dome or not symmetrically domed, right? You can see this nice distortion there. Sapphire crystal with internal anti-reflective coating, and the AR is pretty good here. You know, you can kind of look at it and see it fairly clearly, the reflections mostly from the outside surface. Okay, moving on to the bracelet then. The bracelet is 5 pieces per link. You can see 3 plus the 2 polish sides there, and the sides are kind of this lovely, very nicely done rivet style. I really like the rivet style that they've gone here, right? It's got solid straight ends. I don't mind that they've done straight ends for this particular design. Somehow it seems to fit it. And it's got screw link adjustment, which is something pretty cool. I like that they've implemented screw link adjustment in this particular watch here. It's got a milled clasp, which is about 21 millimeters in terms of the width. Just to show you, the bracelet does taper from 20 to 18 millimeters at the narrowest portion. Okay, that's really the tapering you're seeing there. The clasp does have 6-point micro adjustment, which I like because you can really have a wide range of adjustment and lend it to someone without having to necessarily change and take out a length, and pretty solid deploying arms, but it is a friction class. There's no push button in this case. Okay, so let's just put it on the wrist for you guys to see how it sits now. Snap it on, and there we go. The MAS watches Irukandji on my 17cm wrist, which, because the lug width, the lug-to-lug distance is only 46 millimeters, it really sits quite well. I think this will suit almost any men, really, in terms of you don't have to have a large wrist to carry this watch, because it really does wear fairly small thanks to the case design that they've gone for. And just to point out, 10 o'clock crown really is perfect for a left-hander. I like how they've gone for that option there. Okay, so that's the description of the watch. What have I really liked about this watch? Well, look, I think it's a pretty nice overall package to start with. It's got the Seiko movement, reliable NH35. They've given sapphire with a ceramic insert. They've given drilled lugs on the case and 200-meter water resistant for the dive credentials. Pretty good package to start with, right? But on top of that, you have a very nice, unique design, right? Really, really like this case. Just the roundness, the contiguousness of the sapphire crystal with the bezel, and then the case continues on. It kind of makes me smile when I look at it on the wrist. It's a great design. Really love it. It's got a very nicely implemented bracelet with the rivets and the screw links, and overall fairly good quality construction. Can't knock the quality and the solidity here. A lot to like about this watch. The weaknesses, well, I think there are some obvious places to upgrade, and hopefully they will move on to upgrading some of the features and implementations. And the obvious places, I would say, is a push button release. That would be very welcome, because the friction is a little bit awkward sometimes to handle. I would much rather a push button that they can put in, without too much cost, I would assume. Indices wise, right, they've gone for a printed dial, and that's fine. It kind of suits the design in some extent, but obviously applied indices would be a step up and kind of would lift this watch, I think. And then I think a higher standard of finishing would, I also stand them in terms of benefiting the brand overall. So the finishing at the side here, it's a little bit wavy, particularly when it comes near the crown, and you can see that part there, that horizontal bit there, it's not completely even. So I think one more pass or two in terms of finishing would do this in good stead, would be of significant benefit, and hopefully they can move up in their next kind of projects that they will release. So guys, that's my description and thoughts about the MAS Irukandji Diver. Let's flip the camera around now for the wrap up. There you go, guys, my review of the MAS watches Irukandji Diver. Let me know what you think about this piece, one of their starting pieces. I think there's a lot to like about it, and they've listed it for a pretty fair price for what is effectively a very unique design, which I think is pretty cool actually. So guys, if you like my videos, please consider subscribing. I put out content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.